Oh hey, what are you doing there? Yeah, that's right. Farm Traveler is finally on a farm. So we're at Lava Aloha in beautiful Hilo, Hawaii. Thanks to our past guest, Deus, the farm manager here, for getting us a tour. So we're gonna tour the chocolate farm, their coffee, how they make chocolate, how it goes from cacao pods to chocolate bars. This is so fun. It's a beautiful day here in Hawaii. And we actually toured a farm. We actually traveled to a farm. So I hope you enjoyed this video. On this episode of the Grand Tour,
today we're going to show you a little bit around our main fruiting orchards, let you try some of the fresh fruit right out of the trees, and then show you how we make our gourmet single origin chocolates. This first field we're coming up to, I like to call this our Charlie Brown Christmas tree orchard, because if you notice, half the leaves are missing from the trees. Of course, that is due to some environmental factors as well as some of the pests that we experience on the island. I'm not sure if you guys know, but we have more pigs than people here on the Big Island.
more pigs?
Oh yes.
Oh cool.
And there's, our whole 1,000 acres is completely fenced in, but we have 12 miles worth of little riverways. The most prominently grown cacao variety in the world. I don't see any right yet. Oh, here's some. So this tree right here, all you can see is very small cakey or young fruit. But this is your commonly known forastero tree.
Okay.
The pod starts off bright green, and as it ages, will start turning darker and darker in hue. As it ripens, it will actually turn into a golden yellow coloration. Here. Of course, in the first beginning stages of their life, they look quite similar because they both emit a nice dark purple hue on the pod, just like you see here. As that ages, if it's a criollo, it will start to turn into kind of a stop sign red coloration. Of course, this is due to a little bit of sunburn, and this is due to occasionally when we go to check the pod if it's ripe, we actually will scratch the side of it. So that's why you see so many abrasions. Naturally, it does not harm the fruit at all because the fruit kind of heals itself, and the husk is about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick.
Oh.
So unless you actually puncture it, it won't hurt the internal fruit
So it's
itself.
a thick boy.
Oh, it is. They're quite hard. You could probably knock somebody out with it. But your criollo lightens up to a stop sign red coloration, while your trinitario has a mix between the golden yellow and the red hue. That's because trinitario is a hybrid between both varieties. It actually happened on the island of Trinidad in the year 1727. I was trying to find a nice one for you to get a picture of. The secondary stems. Cacao is a primary producer, just like Chobabicaba. So that is actually called calipherial growth. So through thousands of years of adaptation, certain trees have realized that they are more capable of producing and spreading their seeds about if they're lower on the tree. So Chobabicaba will actually pluck it or grow right off the main trunk, so that when a pig or some small ground-dwelling animal comes by, you can actually pluck that off and then go along and excrete that seed out. But usually our fruit that grow at a low level tend to disappear overnight. That's usually because the pigs come through and they're like, oh goody!
Snack time!
And they only wait till they're ripe too. So we believe that they can actually smell the internal nectar on the inside. Because once this starts to have a nice ripening color, the internal fermentation has already began. The natural sugars and yeast start to eat each other and naturally ferment, giving it a sweet kind of flavor profile.
So they know the right time to hit it too.
They do.
Huh.
But I'm going to give you guys a little history lesson while I open this, because it does take a minute. So originally, cacao was actually first utilized by the Mesoamericans and the Olmecs. At least that's what we know from being recorded times. But the Aztecs' famous cacao drink, or their ceremonial drink, was what revolutionized what we know as chocolate today. And that was actually due to that recipe making its way into Europe. But in Europe, the original recipe that consisted of nectar, cacao beans that were sun-dried, and a wide array of peppers and spices. Peppers and spices weren't that popular in Europe at the time. But what was? Milk and sugar. So they replaced the peppers and spices with milk and sugar and created your world's first chocolate milk drink up until the early 1840s when two Swiss brothers created a chocolate treat out of this amazing fruit. But this is actually completely edible.
The whole thing?
Yeah, so prior to about a few weeks ago, I would tell you can only eat this internal core.
Okay.
And that's actually what we utilize to make chocolate out of. But we found out there's an individual on the East Coast that imports cacao from Argentina, and he actually will dehydrate the husk and makes flour out of it. So it is completely edible, but most of the nutrition is in the beans itself.
Right.
And this is for you guys. Don't feel afraid. Just take one, pop it out, and toss it in your mouth, and you just chew it all together. If it's not your cup of tea, feel free to spit it on out. That's kind of what I did my first one. But this is the sweetest out of all three varieties. It will have a kind of a bitter taste, but what a lot of people like to do is just kind of take that pulp off and then just eat the pulp. But the nutrition is in that bean itself. And I, for one, had never seen purple in my chocolate until they showed me the internal raw bean. But as it goes through the different stages of fermenting, drying, and roasting, it does get darker and darker, but that true natural purple does stay within the chocolate.
Okay. Okay.
But on this side, this is actually where we process our cacao whenever we're not processing. Some of our local farmers are processing their, their sweet potato, ginger, and sweet.
Okay.
So in the beginning of our days, we didn't have the luxury of owning a lot of heavy-duty equipment. We actually sometimes, and still do, use these two machines right here. Oh, machines, contraptions. So this little thing has seen probably a few million pods at a time. You take each one, smash it until it breaks open, scoop out the contents, and then put it in our fermentation bucket like you see behind you. But through time we realized that this is not as efficient as we would like it to be. So we designed something similar to other parts of the world where they use a lot of scrap metal and old machetes. Designed something similar to a guillotine for cacao. So they'll place the pod elongated and just rotate it. And as it barely cracks the external husk, they'll break it apart fully, scoop out the whole inside like I was showing you, and then they'll wrap that up in some banana leaves. Within 3 to 5 days, of course, in that 9 degrees latitude, a lot warmer of an area of the world, it's fully fermented. But in the rainiest city in America, of course, it takes substantially longer. Actually about 11 to 15 days to fully ferment. And that happens in just this room behind us. But I want to show you our cacao splitter that we believe is the only one on the Hawaiian Islands. It comes from Brazil, and it takes about 4 people to operate. We'll have 2 on the end, 1 in the middle, and 1 in the front. The person on this side will have a few thousand pounds of cacao all lined up. They'll take each one out of the bag and place it on the conveyor belt. As it goes up, it'll then get split in half. And as the pieces go through, this grate will be tumbling and all seeds will fall out. As they fall out through the grate, they'll land on the side walls, which there's another one on the other side. They'll slowly stick to it and then slide down, falling and collecting on these 2 ends. The empty husks come out on this end, and usually the 2 individuals are on a truck or elevated platform where they catch what's coming out, and if there's any beans still left in it, they have to extract that out, toss it in and let the beans go and collect, and then they take the husk and throw it in the truck.
Okay.
When they're done with the harvest, they'll turn off the machine, lift these little slates up, the beans will fall into the bin, and then the nectar, excess nectar, will start to seep out. As this continues to fall through, it will land in this bucket, and before we move it into the fermentation room, we do have to place banana leaves on top. Banana leaves act as a moisture absorber, and I wouldn't say moisture absorber, they hold in the moisture and the heat, but they act as an antimicrobial and antifungal agent. So it keeps it from molding in one of the rainiest cities in America.
Like a natural pressing seal.
Exactly. But once the nectar starts to fill up, we will replace the bottom bin before we end the day, just so it doesn't overfill throughout the night.
Okay.
Then we'll roll that over into our processing, or I wouldn't say processing, our fermentation/drying room. So our fermentation actually happens in the far corner in this insulated box, where it sits in there, and it usually will be turned over every single day. What I mean by turned over is somebody has to come in every morning, take the batch, scoop it into another bin, and that speeds up and kind of quickens the fermentation process. Once they're done fermenting, all these beans are then placed onto these drying trays. They sit in here for another 1 to 2 weeks until they reach a moisture content of around 10%. Once the chocolate maker has deemed them dry, he will then bring them over to the sorting table where he actually individually goes through every single bean.
They smell so good.
It smells amazing.
Smells so great.
I'm so desensitized to the smell.
Really not used to now?
I can't smell it anymore. Because I spend quite a bit of time in here and they're like, wow, it smells just like chocolate. I'm like, I wish I could smell that. When I first started working here, oh, it was wonderful coming here.
That's so funny.
If you guys want to look down here, we actually just started to do our first time single origin coffee. So what I mean by single origin is that we have every step of the process is done here on our farm. We actually grow it here, pick it, ferment it, dry it, and then we actually have our own roaster now, about a $60,000 roaster from Turkey.
Wow.
But we are now fully operable in single origin coffee and our chocolate.
So is the process of coffee and chocolate kind of similar a little bit?
Kind of, yes. So generally they do have to be, plucked from the tree.
Right.
The coffee has to be, the actual skin has to be taken off or pulped, and then you get the beans. Those will ferment for a different amount of time, but then they have to dry as well. I would say it's completely, almost the same up until you get to the production of making your chocolate. So once it gets to the dry bean, there's a lot more steps. Because coffee, you just got to roast it, grind it, and you're good. Chocolate, you got to roast it, winnow it, crush it up, process it, then add more, then grind it, and there's about 10 more steps, added to cacao.
Gotcha.
So once these beans are completely dry, specifically the cacao, they're all placed onto the table that we first passed out as we walked in. And this is where the chocolate maker spends most of his mornings. And that is all searching through every single bean. So everything you see down here is basically the rubbish or stuff that we don't want to make chocolate out of. Of course, at home, this is perfectly fine. You could make chocolate with this, but we don't want to put things like this into our roaster, because if we do so, that exposed bean will break up into all these little pieces, burn and foul our whole roast. So we would have to throw that away, actually. So the chocolate maker's job is to sort through and find only perfectly encased beans. If this goes into the roaster, it won't break, and it basically keeps it sterile, protects it from breaking, and prevents it from burning. But he has to be very, very careful not to get some, because as they dry, that nectar will keep them together. And if you go to pull them apart, sometimes you take another piece off of one of the beans. If this is exposed, it'll dry improperly, and then it gets really brittle. And if you have this break in the roaster, it will turn the whole entire flavor of that roast completely off. So we are a small batch chocolate farm. We usually do about 40 to 60 pounds on a roast, just because if something goes wrong, then we're not wasting a lot of product. Because since we're off grid as well, power is an issue.
True.
When the power goes off and you're making chocolate, it kind of throws your day off. But the chocolate maker, he'll usually get about 60 pounds and put it in a food grade sealable bucket, and he'll run it over outside and into our chocolate lounge that we're about to go to.
Sweet. This is like a chocolate lounge. I like it.
Yeah, this is
really good gig.
So we've kind of gone over the first few steps of the process. We've shown you how we harvest over in our orchards. We ferment and process and dry our beans in that really warm area. And then we actually do roast just at our front doors. So those two roasters you see back there are what we utilize. The smaller silver one is our current one that we use. And they will be usually preheated to about 245 degrees Fahrenheit and then pushed to the front of the door just to prevent it making it about 90 degrees in here. And then once it's completely preheated, our chocolate maker will throw them in and then start his day. But I have a few short videos that I can show you guys first. Fats and oils to be pressed out, or otherwise known as cacao butter, at a later stage. But if you don't have a press, a machine called a concher, what it does is it takes all three ingredients from the top and it has 3 granite wheels that slowly grind everything together for about 5 hours until you get to this very smooth consistency. And at this stage, it'll never harden up to what I just handed you guys.
This week on Farm Traveler, I see a chicken. Guys, there's chickens. I love chickens, and there's chickens here. Welcome back to Farm Traveler. So, it's a little hot outside. Here in Florida today with the humidity, it was, I think, 107, which sucks. But it's hot all around the country right now, currently in June. And so some crops are struggling, some crops aren't. But because of awesome technology like hydroponics, you can grow indoors all year round and not really worry about the climate. I mean, it's still going to be a little bit hot, but you can control the temperature a lot better. And there's a great technology called hydroponics, which we've kind of talked about on the Farm Traveler podcast. And today we are doing another farm tour with an awesome farm in Tallahassee, Florida. Today we're going to tour Legacy Greens and talk with their founders, Jordan and Daniel. Now, if you might remember, we had them on the show about a year ago, and they grow awesome microgreens and edible flowers. I think they have something like, I don't know, 10 or 12 different varieties of microgreens that they grow. And so in the tour today, we're going to walk through the process, how they start off the seeds, put them in hydroponic systems, how long it takes for them to grow, how they harvest it, and how they also use a very special plastic for the containers that their microgreens are in, and how that plastic comes from recycled water bottles, which is really cool. And so we're going to tour their facility. It was so much fun. There is a little bit of fan noise because they use fans to help control the air in the warehouse. So it's super fun. I think you're going to enjoy it. And be sure to check out Legacy Greens. I'll link all their link stuff below in the description. So we're finally touring more farms here on Farm Traveler. I hope you learn a thing or two. I sure did.
It's already kind of warm in here. For an indoor growing space, while it's warm, we're making it work. But that's why we decided to start with the container.
Okay.
So we were in here, it's 100 degrees. We're like, we're never going to be able to grow anything in here. We need a controlled space.
Yeah.
And so the container essentially allowed us to park it in here, build it out how we needed it to, and we were up and running within a couple months once we decided to split from the contract.
I mean, not only important for the plants, but also for you guys who are not sweating bullets.
Exactly, and we had an AC workspace to be in.
Yeah.
And then what happened was the winter rolled around and it started to cool off in here. And we're like, wow, this is actually comfortable in here. And maybe at least during the winter time, we can get some crops done. Mm-hmm. And by then, we had already insulated this. This is where the original farm was going to be. Just getting ready to start putting on some flowers, all the nasturtium, violas and pansies kind of mixed in. You got a bunch of marigolds, and then that's the borage back here. Pardon my mess.
No, you're good.
But yeah, this is the borage back here. Those are the buzz buttons, bachelor buttons, calendulas, snapdragons, just to name a few. Yeah, I wish there was more flowers going on, unfortunately.
There's a couple. There's a couple.
Yeah, there's
there
a couple just starting to come on. But it just kind of happened to work out with our scheduling of everything.
So I know growing inside, you usually don't have to worry about pests, right?
Correct.
So have you encountered them in the past?
We have. We've actually encountered a small patch of spider mites.
Okay.
And they were actually on some of our older marigold flowers, which used to be in that bed.
Really?
And they just tend to come in really just on us. On people.
Okay.
It's typically if you're at home gardening, depending on where you're walking, if you're out at the compost, which is why we have the foot bath up there.
Right.
But that's typically how they come in. Essentially, we just eliminate that crop. We chopped all those flowers down.
Okay.
We cleaned the beds and areas. We inspected everything really thoroughly. This is what we started with. We went from the guest bedroom at the house with just 34 racks. Yeah. And then another reason why we would like this idea is because we didn't really know what our demand was going to be. How much greens can we sell? Is Tallahassee market even capable of buying all these greens?
Right, yeah.
You know, and so this was another reason to start here, because it was definitely more than 4 racks, but it wasn't a whole warehouse that we needed to build out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we started with this. It was an empty container, just had the door on it, and we did the floors, we painted the walls, we built all the racks, we installed the AC, the dehumidifiers, the fans. And then, just the electrician did the power. And so, so these are all my automated irrigation systems.
Okay.
So I don't actually do any more hand watering at this point. Essentially, you got the tank down below, and then once a day, the the water will actually pump up to the top tray. It'll fill to a certain point, and then it'll cascade down to the next tray. And it'll make its way all the way down to the bottom, and then return back to the container.
Nice.
And then the pump's on the timer, and so the timer shuts off, and then all the water drains away.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is actually not a micro. This is more of a baby green.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously see, but this is the Mizuna mustard.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. We were still figuring this one out, and I was growing it longer than we really should have been, and Daniel just took it out to some chefs, and they like loved it. And I'm like, no, here's the right Mizuna mustard. This is how it's supposed to be. They're like, no, we don't want it like that.
Yeah.
No thanks.
And show the chef something, and that's what they're going to expect every week.
Yeah, once they see it, once they want it, that's what you got to make for them. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So since y'all have scaled up a little bit, I mean, are you working more with Tallahassee-based chefs, like bringing them because you have like a larger supply of grains?
95% of our business right now is commercial.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. We're doing about 40 restaurants between Tallahassee and Panama City Beach.
Really? Okay.
So
cool.
we go all the way almost to Destin.
here, the red garnet amaranth
Oh, that's pretty.
stuff's to give me problems, but
Oh, really?
yeah, it just tends to. It's always with the heat because they germinate out there.
Yeah.
I'm starting to have some issues in germination, which is leading just a little bit of damping off, but stuff that happens just about every farm. But I'm working through it.
There you go.
But the Detroit red beets. Another popular one. Red acre cabbage, arugula. So this is this week's arugula. This is next week's arugula. You can kind of see
The difference
it's about
there,
a 2 week crop.
Okay.
At least this is how I like to grow it. And then the chervil is actually a newer variety, micro herb. That one's been really nice as well. It's got like a licorice taste to it. Yeah. And then here, this is what we're calling our. These two racks are kind of our baby greens.
Okay.
But essentially, we take our dark opal basil and we're going for about 4 weeks.
Okay.
To essentially get them to this point. And the chefs have really been enjoying the larger basil like this. And so that's what's going on here. And then you got your red vein sorrel down there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think we got about 20 varieties that we're actively growing.
Okay.
At the moment.
25 if you count blends and mixes, and
Okay.
the edible flowers adds another 20 or 30 varieties if you want to count individual flowers.
Well, again, my naive thinking in the past, but like you can pack so many flowers into a small space. I mean,
I bet,
on like one of those racks out there, I mean, each shelf alone can produce 200 to 300 flowers a week.
Yeah.
And you can cut all those, and next week it'll be all full again with probably even more flowers.
That's impressive.
And just the regrowth on them is just literally, it's almost a weekly turnover. They're really efficient. They come back looking better, fresher.
Yeah.
And just the variety. I mean, there's so many different edible flowers that I didn't even know existed until I started looking into them.
Yeah.
Your scale. Some of your packaging, your knives.
Yeah, one of the things too that from a sustainability aspect, obviously we use a lot of single-use plastic. However, before we were using these completely single-use dart containers, and we've actually found a company called Bottle Box.
Okay.
These guys, what they do is they recycle millions of water bottles each year.
Really?
And this clamshell, for example, is made out of 2 recycled water bottles.
Wow. Okay.
So please reduce, reuse, recycle. Throw these guys back in the recycling bin so that they can be made back into these nice little clamshells for us.
That's neat.
Now, because 95% of our business is restaurants, almost all of our restaurants are getting these large tubs each week, and we're actually swapping these out.
Oh, okay.
So
nice. I gotcha.
next week's harvest will go in, freshly harvested greens will go in here.
Right.
The chefs will give me their empties, and we swap them out for these. So
that essentially eliminates.
Are they really big fans of that too?
They love it.
They love it. That's awesome.
These guys hold the freshness a lot better.
Yeah.
They're burpable.
Yeah.
Not as much moisture gets into these guys.
Okay. Yeah.
And what's nice is they just throw these in the cooler. They take out what they need for the line, and then they'll just refill their container at the line.
Nice.
So they're not opening and closing the same clamshell over and over and over again.
Most, at least when you're packaging them, the smaller ones, they'll put the whole thing on the line. It'll sit there all day, and at the end of the day, they put it back. And they're like, "Oh, my greens are going bad.
My greens are going
bad. What's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, you're working in a hot kitchen.
Yeah.
Good side.
Good side? Yeah, back.
The good side. Which side's the good side?
They're all the good side.
All the good side?
Yeah,
On this side.
essentially, this is essentially how the process starts. You kind of have a cup labeling. So every tray will get a label. Every variety has a certain density.
Okay.
And so she essentially prepares all the cups beforehand, and it comes out and starts spreading them.
Okay, so I've seen some people when they're growing them, they put cinder blocks on top.
Yeah, that's germination.
Okay.
So yeah,
so that's what y'all are doing right
you
here.
plant
Okay,
right here,
cool,
and then
cool,
you turn around. Yeah, you got germination. Yeah, nice flow. You got everything you need.
Everything
you
right
grab
here,
your
yeah.
trays, You put them out. You prep them. You germinate, and then you go into the container, or they go out there.
So how long do they stay here?
So it depends on the variety, but anywhere from 3 to 7 days.
Okay.
So like the cilantro and the chervil are
Right.
7 days. So those are the longest ones.
Okay.
And then like pretty much everything else, pretty much 3 days.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, how cool is that? Great technology, and I'm so excited that awesome farms are starting out here in North Florida, Tallahassee, using hydroponics, aquaponics, all that good stuff. So I think it's great. Now this is like, I think the second or third like big time farm tour we've done here on Farm Traveler. So I'm learning a lot. I hope that, you know, the camera work continues to improve. Allie was on a business trip, so we didn't have her camera expertise like the Hawaii chocolate video, which I will also link below. And so I'm slowly figuring out that to make these videos, I've got to work on storytelling. Like really figure out how to tell the story of the farmer, their processes in a logical way where, you know, it comes off naturally for them, and you, the viewer, can also learn really well during the course of the video. So we'll see. I'm going to brainstorm on ways we can do this in the future. So anyway, yeah, cool little tidbit. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a thing or two about microgreens and even hydroponics. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already. We're going to have more farm tours coming soon, and I think it's going to be great. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Hello, everyone. In this video, we'll be talking about how a dairy actually milks cows and how they make ice cream, like this delicious ice cream from Southern Craft Creamery, the exact dairy we actually went to. It's peach and it's delicious. Hello, and welcome back to Farm Traveler. If you're new here, thanks for finding us on the internet. If you are a longtime subscriber, thanks for watching. So in this tour, we're gonna tour Southern Craft Creamery in Marianna, Florida, and see how they manage their cows, how they milk them, how they care for them, and then also how they make some really good ice cream in Marianna. You saw earlier, we've got the peach flavor. They have so many flavors and they're all delicious. So we're actually also gonna tour their creamery and figure out, you know, what goes on behind the scenes, how they make their ice cream, and all that good stuff. And I love doing tours like this because you get to learn a thing or two about the people that actually work on the farm, like Megan and Brad. So Megan is a veterinarian. She cares for the cows, told us so much information about the care and technology that goes into monitoring them and all that good stuff. And then Brad actually has his doctorate in physiology for beef and animal science. And I've emailed them just to make sure I got both of those right. Both clearly know what they're doing when it comes to managing a dairy. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Check out this full interview. I had like 2 hours of footage and I edited it down to like 30 minutes or whatever this is. So I really hope you enjoy it. It's going to be so fun touring how they milk the cows, what the apparatuses are, how many times a day they milk them, what feed's like. And we also got to see a calf being born. That was wild. It was Allie's first time seeing a cow being born, and it was perfect. We couldn't have planned it any better. So I hope you enjoy this tour. It's super fun. Had a good time. Enjoy it. Okay, now on with the tour. All right, we're here at Sindel Farms with Megan and Brad. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Yeah, so tell us about your dairy farm.
Yeah, so this is Sindel Farms. It was established by my parents, Dale and Cindy Eade, hence the name.
So we had
Sindel.
on the podcast, yeah.
Yes, and Dad was on the podcast a few years ago with you, right? So they started this farm in 1994. Prior to that, my dad had been in the dairy industry over in Monticello, Florida.
Okay.
So he was a manager of a 2,000 cow herd. It was old Bassett's Dairy. And when that farm family decided to sell, my parents had to figure out what the heck they were going to do.
Yeah.
And they still really love dairying, and so they moved to this county and started renting existing dairy facilities until they could build up enough equity to build the facility that we're at today. Nice. So this facility was built in 2003, and we moved in, right, Brad? I'm checking with him because my dates get all mixed up. We moved in 2004. Okay. So it was run by my parents until Brad and I returned in late 2009. And then we co-managed for a few years, and then we had the crazy idea to start a creamery, which was started by my sister.
As if you weren't already busy enough.
Right.
Yeah.
My younger sister, and she and her husband ran it for about a year and a half, and then he wanted to go back to flying helicopters, which is more exciting than making ice cream.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And so they transitioned out of the creamery, and my parents moved over to day-to-day management there, and Brad and I took over full-time management here.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was about in 2015. So, so the farm encompasses right around 500 acres, just a few acres less than that, and then right around 500 total head, all the way from young stock up to aged adult milk cows. We are a little different than most Florida dairy farms. We don't have, although standing here behind me are some of them, we don't have a lot of Holsteins. So when Brad and I came back, we switched over to the little brown cows. So those are Jerseys.
Those are I always get Jersey and Guernsey confused.
Yep. So we have both actually. So these are Jerseys.
Okay.
So the big Holsteins belong to an employee of ours who's kind of in a management role with us, and so she had a herd of purebred Holsteins and Guernseys in Vermont.
Okay.
And so they moved down a year and a half ago, roughly. So those big girls, those are Holsteins. That's the primary breed in the world, really. And most of the dairy farms in this country would be the black and whites. I always tell kids they're the Chick-fil-A cows.
The Chick-fil-A cows.
Everybody knows what they are when I say that. And then at the end down there, that girl that's red and white, that's a Guernsey.
Okay.
So they're a little taller in stature, closer to the Holstein. Than, the Jerseys are pretty short.
Yeah. They are a lot shorter. Like standing right next to the Holstein.
Which is really nice for me as a female. I like working with them better.
So how many gallons of milk are the cows producing per day?
So it depends on the breed of cow and their stage of lactation. But on average, dairy cows will produce anywhere from 6 to upwards of 11 gallons per cow per day. So your Holsteins are going to be on the upper end of that spectrum. Jerseys tend to be in that kind of 6, 7, 8 gallons per cow per day.
Okay.
I'm coming through. Oh, buddy.
You got it. Oh, good job. Look at that.
Oh, man.
So this is our feeding and cooling barn. So this barn is split in half. We have this side, the cows on this side of the barn right now have already been milked. So they've been milked, they're out here, breakfast time, everybody's getting a bite to eat. We also have water troughs in there. They can get all the water they need. We have fans and misters in there, which, on a nice day like today with a good breeze, we don't need. The other side looks exactly like this side, feed on the outside. All those cows will be milked next. They're waiting their turn.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they'll go into the milking parlor, and when they're done, they'll come out. So the cows essentially have constant access to this barn when they're not being milked. They also have constant access to a field. We practice rotational grazing at this farm. So every day the cows are gonna see a different field, and they can choose. They'll go out, graze a little, lay down, come back in, eat, just as they wish. Something about this barn, it's kind of the same with our milking parlor. At the very front of it, there's a big tank.
Yeah.
And what we do with that tank is we fill it with water, and that's how we clean this barn, is we use
water
to flush it all out.
Gotcha.
So it'll all flush down, it travels down, and there's a little channel. It goes down, and we have a separator, so the solid portion settles out.
Right.
The liquid portion goes through a weir, goes through a pipe, ends up in a lagoon, and that's the water that we use to irrigate.
Gotcha.
So all this field that you see back here is irrigated with water that we've used one time.
So recycling.
We recycle everything. Cool. We're recycling the water, because anything that's used in the milk parlor to wash anything down, that all ends up in the lagoon. Flushing the barn, all that ends up down there, so we can use it again, and we can use it to irrigate.
Gotcha.
The feed, cows produce a lot of manure. That manure, the solid part settles out in the settling basin, in the solid separator, and then we take a tractor, when it's full, scoop it out, load it up, and we take it to the parts of the farm that don't get the liquid effluent.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're adding our macronutrients, our micronutrients, our carbon. We're building our soils that way.
Right, yeah.
So we're gonna add to places where I can't get those cows, but I can get a manure spreader and I can get that out there and use that. So the only fertilizer that we buy on this farm is what you see right here in the barn.
It's not bad.
And feed is really expensive, so I want to feed the cows as efficiently as possible so they can get all the nutrients that they need. If cows get all the nutrients they need, they're happy and healthy. They're going to make high quality milk. That's our goal. And then once they've used that, I can use what's left over, the manure, to grow more grass.
And it's probably like the higher quality of the feed, not only the higher quality of milk, the higher quality of fertilizer you get too.
Yes.
That's
yes.
a win-win.
So, our goal is the health of the cow first.
Gotcha.
If we can have the healthiest cow, then we can have the best quality product.
So I know that this is kind of a misconception sometimes, but if you have a sick cow, right, they're not milked, or the milk is collected separately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this herd back behind us, if you can see grazing, or some are grazing, some are getting feed out of our feed bunks.
Yeah.
That is our hospital herd, or our pot herd.
Okay.
So all of the cows that you see out there are in there for a reason. That herd gets milked last.
Gotcha.
So we milk all of the milk herd cows, then we go out and we bring those cows in.
Okay.
So those cows get milked last because they need special attention.
Right.
So when those cows are brought in, when we do treat a cow for an illness with an antibiotic, all the antibiotics have withdrawal times.
Right.
That has been studied, and it says after so many hours, days, weeks, that antibiotic will no longer be present in the milk or meat from that animal.
Right, yeah.
We still have to milk the cow during that time, because if you stop milking a cow, she stops producing milk. So we continue to milk her, but when that herd comes in, we do not collect that milk. That milk gets dumped. So it never enters the human food chain, which is, a question we get asked a lot. Oh, are you organic? And a lot of people assume we're organic because we create a product.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, no, we're not organic. And we have these reasons why, but, and then people will say, well, what's the difference between organic milk and conventional milk? Say, organic, if you are an organic farm, if a cow gets sick and you treat it with an antibiotic, it must leave your farm. It can no longer be a part of your herd. Yes.
Okay.
So that's really difficult.
Yeah.
Meg is a vet, so we have the knowledge to utilize all the tools that we can put in our toolbox. With our daughter, if she gets sick and we go to the doctor and the doctor says, you need to give her this antibiotic, we're going to do that.
Okay.
We're not pumping her with antibiotics every day. These cows, we're not just pumping antibiotics into our cows, very selective in our use, but if I can heal an animal by giving them something, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it's not like a one-size-fits-all.
No. And for us, that's the way, like I said, animal health and comfort. And that is the way that we can manage our animals the best way that we can to provide the healthiest, happiest animal.
And I mean, you're testing your milk constantly, right?
Yes.
And so if by any chance a little bit of antibiotic residue is in the whole vat of milk, the whole thing gets dumped, right?
The whole thing will get dumped. So it will be tested here, it's tested at the plant, and then it can be tested, they will pull jugs off of shelves just to check and make sure things are still kosher.
And I mean, that sucks for y'all too, because if you have to dump it, that's money down the drain that you're literally not going to get. Like, that's in your best interest to make sure it's safe.
Also, we'll have to, if it made it onto a tanker truck, we have to buy all the other milk on that tanker truck that's not ours. We have to pay to get the tanker truck cleaned out. And then there's potential for fines from the government because it's a violative food.
Oh, yeah.
So they can come in and say, hey, we need to go over your protocols, and we can fine you for that.
So there's a lot of incentives to not have anything go wrong.
Yes.
Gotcha. That's perfect. All right. Good explanation. That's good. These cows have personalities like that.
Walk straight out of there. Yep.
Yeah.
We were laughing at 361.
When you have a calf, she is a heifer up until the time that she has a calf. So everybody out here is pregnant. The cows and heifers. There are some steers out here though, like Aldo, which we raise steers. We grow them out and for personal consumption, part of payment for our employees, and then we retail beef out of our creamery.
Well, we might have a good opportunity over here.
Where?
Calving that way.
Uh-oh.
Try to sneak up.
Well, you're going to see some calving.
So the everybody out here is pregnant and they will calve within the next, what's our furthest out? 6 months probably?
Oh, no. Well, there's just those 3 pairs out there the other day. Everybody really is going to calve before the beginning of December.
Gotcha. Yeah, how long is the calving window? I was telling Allie about that earlier, like kind of the calving season.
So it depends on the farm. So we function more like a beef herd because we raise our calves the way we do. We have distinct seasons. So, oh yeah, right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna swing around and try to get that.
So they can see on that side.
That heifer's gonna be in the way of the cow.
Yeah, see it? Hey, take some video.
We'll try to get up so she's
try
still
to-
laying down and you guys can see on your side.
49.
Somewhere.
Right behind her.
Oh, there it is. Oh! So that one just calved this morning. Oh!
Yep, calving. She's just chilling.
So for us, our calving season is September through early December, and then again in March and April. But that is farm specific. Most dairies will calve year round, so they're constantly calving.
Oh, okay.
For cash flow reasons, that's a
Yeah.
lot easier. We like this kind of seasonality because we're a small farm and we can focus on certain things during certain times of the year.
Much more manageable.
Yes.
I can imagine.
Instead of having to worry with everything all the time. Like we have a distinct calving season, we have a distinct breeding season, you know, so and summer's slower for us so we can focus on fun things like repairing fences and mowing.
The necessities, the stuff you've got to do.
So cows, babies come out front feet first. So those are the front legs. And then right on top, which is hard to see because the placenta's over.
Yep, mama's cleaning.
Oh my god.
Look at that baby. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thanks. How much did you grab?
1 or 2.
Oh, you know I didn't.
Oh.
I was too busy just trying to get it set up for mom. As big as those things.
Look at
He's
this.
just like, hello.
Hello. Welcome to the world. Yeah.
But it's also responsible for milk cut down.
Oh, okay.
So having this very methodic routine in the parlor also allows for that for these girls. Allows that oxytocin release to then fill the teat-ins and help for quick milk letdown here in the parlor.
Okay. And they'll also like sometimes like jab the udder, right? Like with their nose.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
sometimes
Calves
like,
are pretty aggressive. They'll come up and really butt at them, and
I'm
like,
hungry.
and that all helps to kind of stimulate them to let down their milk. So we're doing that in a little bit different manner, but the touching and the wiping and all of that helps that to it.
Yeah.
And then once he's done wiping, he's gonna come back and attach the So the milking machines themselves, you guys can see the milk flowing down into the kind of the bowl of the milking unit. But there's a vacuum applied to the milking machine and then a high-low pressure, which simulates that of a calf nursing. So some of our girls only are productive in 3 out of their 4 quarters. Okay. So a cow has an udder and with 4 compartments. You can go ahead, Lester. With 4 compartments, and sometimes one of those compartments is not functioning, and they don't cross communicate. So they're their own distinct section. So this, and I don't remember, she's so old, I don't remember what happened with her left front. I don't remember if it was a bad case of mastitis or if she had an injury. But sometimes they're not functioning 1 quarter, and so there would be a 3-quarter cow, which is why he has that little milking cup flip back and a rag in it, because it's not actually getting milk. A normal cow would have all 4 functioning like this. But I'll kind of explain. So this portion is a rubber inflation. This is the only portion that actually touches the cow's body. And then this outside canister, so the rubber inflation runs all the way through, and this is the other side of it. Between the inside rubber inflation and this outside canister is a pressure, a high-low pressure applied, and that's what I was saying. There's a vacuum and then that pressure, and that allows for that rubber liner to kind of I don't know how to describe that, but suck in and out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just like a calf nursing. So it's going to flow down as the milk comes out down into the bulb, down through this pipe, through a stainless steel pipe, and then up through an inline filter. We filter the milk in case there was any hair or debris that might be in it. And then it's going to flow up over our heads into the milk tank in the milk room where it's cooled and stored until we either use it for the creamery or our milk marketing co-op comes and picks it up.
Gotcha. Okay.
So essentially Monday, Wednesday, Friday we milk twice a day, so it's 7 and 7. Tuesdays, Thursdays we milk once a day, right around noon time.
Yeah.
Weekends, in New Zealand it's like a rolling schedule, every other day is like that, but we need stability here.
Oh, yeah.
So for us, we made it so Saturday and Sunday we could flip-flop and kind of make it however needed to be for our employees and our schedule. So Saturday, Sunday we're kind of back and forth, either a single or a double. But a Saturday is either, that has to have both of them on a weekend, a single and a double, to make the week work right.
Gotcha. I interviewed a dairy farm in, where was it, Pittsburgh, I think, and they have like, I think only like 20 head of cattle.
Yeah.
But they train them to where they only milk once a day.
Yep.
And so it's cool that they can like learn to adjust to that schedule.
Yep. They're, obviously if you're milking less, your production is going to decrease. Because that stimulation is going to increase production to a certain level. So if you're milking 3 times a day, you're going to get a little uptick in production from twice a day. If you're milking 3 times in 2 days, you're going to get a little less than milking twice a day. And we knew that, but it was offset by less electric requirements, less labor, less supplies, like T-dip. So there was some offsets there, and we like the flexibility. It allows for us on those days where it's once a day. As a small farm, we can get in the morning and like change out inflations because these things wear out and we have to change them. And that's something that we would always have to wait till the end of the milking shift and hurry and get done before we picked up our daughter. But now it's just more flexibility for us. So we have enjoyed it. So those are the 2 kind of oddball things for us as a farm. The calf rearing on moms and then our weird milking schedule.
So do they produce enough milk for their calf and to be?
Yeah. So the calves typically, now I don't have monitoring systems, but I know what we were feeding them when we were delivering milk, and we kind of have a nice rough idea on total production and which cows are nursing calves. They're going to consume around 2 to 3 gallons per day per calf. Okay. So and those girls that are lower producers obviously aren't going to have as much for us, but there's still plenty for us to take more than what the calf needs.
Yeah, and you can really see how the udder's like.
Yeah. And now, and it will vary a little bit. If you've got a cow that has just had a calf, there's going to be some edema, swelling there, so it's not going to suck down like that quite as much. And then some girls, just like humans, people are always like, wow, that one's so big. Like, no, we all have we're all made of different sizes, and some of them just have more mammary tissue. So we'll still look fuller than, like, say, this girl afterwards. And then some of them shrink down, they just don't have a lot of memory tissue there. And so they look deflated. But yeah, if you see them come in to begin with, they will, unless they're really, really fresh and got a lot of swelling, you will see a distinct difference afterwards.
Okay.
So anything in your questions, anything I missed, that would be disgusting.
You want to look back?
Oh yeah, right down here. I'll do those 2. Are you gonna milk 2, Trevor?
Sure, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'll get you 2 good ones.
Lester, I promise we're not coming for your job. I'm sure you have it down to a science.
He does.
Hey, there you go. That's good.
Alright, so you want to do this one? So I'll explain it and then kind of show you. So you're right-handed? Left-handed? Okay. So you will hold the milking unit in your left hand and kind of let it flop open like a crazy crab. And then you'll hit attach, detach, and I'll turn the vacuum on. The first 2 are going to go to the front seat. And you can kind of, whatever's easiest directional for you, you can hang how you like. So start with that one and this one or the other way, and then these are the back. Okay? So hold with your left hand, yep. And then push your attach, detach. There you go. And let this hand come up just a little bit later. There you go. Perfect.
Look at that.
Bravo, bravo. Cool, you're a pro. All right, your
Milking
turn.
engineer.
All right, Trevor, do you want me to go over it again with you? Or you got it?
This one?
Yep, this one. you to hold under with your, you right-handed as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Under that and then push attach. And then you'll have to like make it covered, yep.
Hey mama. How you doing? Oh, sorry about that. There you go.
Are born without the ability to grow horn because they have a cold gene. So they've started breeding that into dairy sires.
Yeah.
And so we try to use them. So this little girl didn't have horn buds. We trimmed to make sure, but we didn't have to. Start the way the milk's closed. So milk will start in this room. This is our very tiny, very compact raw room. So these are two 30-gallon batch pasteurizers.
Okay.
So you can see how when I say it's not set up for milk processing, it's very small scale, tiny. So I do all our milk through here on Mondays when we're closed. They're still running ice cream, but I can get in here when they're like not as busy and run my milk.
So pasteurizing, you're heating it up really quick to kill off anything that might be right.
So there's minimum temperature requirements for the type of pasteurization that you're doing. So for milk, batch pasteurized, it has to be 145 degrees for 30 minutes. That's non-flavored milks. If you add sugar, you got to up the temperature. And then ice cream, because it has sugar added, it's going to be a little bit higher temperature at for 30 minutes. And so this whole setup is all the equipment that goes on the pasteurizer. It's just a big vat. And it's got a lining around it. So this sits inside of this outside canister, and then you can fill that with water. And these are interesting. They've got two giant hot water heating elements that heat the water that heats the milk.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. And then this is kind of like the main dashboard. So there'll be a chart in here, and this is records all the temperature and time and everything. And then you can set your temperature, your water temperature, and then your airspace temperature.
Gotcha.
And this is just a little agitator that hooks up and stirs the milk or the ice cream. So when we're doing ice cream, everything starts in here as well, because we don't buy a base. We make everything in-house. So we're making the ice cream from scratch. Depends on what flavor we're doing as to whether the whole batch is pasteurized or if the add-ins are cooked in the kitchen and then added afterwards. But some of the flavors go through the whole process starting here, and then some are added in after. After it's pasteurized, then we hook up a hose that goes through the window and then back out the door here to these cooling or heat hoses. So these guys are just sitting in a glycol bath. So they're just floating in here. So we'll fill, and this milk or ice cream gets done the same way. They get pumped into here to chill. And then once obviously these get full, they're going to sit down onto this structure. And then same thing, they're going to have a temperature probe, a thermometer, and an agitator to keep it stirred. And then the milk have to get chilled to under 45 degrees in order to bottle. And then ice cream will typically sit here and kind of age or meld flavors overnight and then get churned the next morning. So we've got 4 of those, and they're all empty right now. And then same thing on the ends, we got chart recorders to know exactly what temperature and what time it was at what time.
That looks like a seismograph.
Yeah, it does kind of, doesn't it? So that's the same
cool
reading that are in the back.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then poured into our ice cream maker churner. This is an Emery Thompson. They're actually made in Florida. One of the very few even made in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Most of them come from Italy. This one, I think it's Brooksville. I'm probably going to be wrong. Somewhere in Central Florida area. It functions very similar to your homemade ice cream maker. It's disassembled right now because they just finished cleaning.
Yeah.
But it has dashers that scrape the frozen product off the outside wall. So this is all kind of a freezer or refrigeration unit. And the only thing that's going to be freezing is the outside wall, and then it's just going to continuously incorporate that into the product.
Okay.
Time, it takes roughly, depending on the ice cream that we're making, 13 to, I think the highest, which is some of your salty ice creams, would be 16 to 17 minutes. And then it comes out in a sort of soft serve consistency. So it's going to be pinted or panned and then put into a hard chiller or blast freezer to really solidify the product.
Okay. Are you recording? Joke's on Allie because I'm lactose intolerant. We have an hour ride home.
This is what we always start with. That's sweet cream,
Sweet cream? Okay.
milk, cream, and sugar. It doesn't have any
The
flavors.
basics. That's all you need.
Yeah. And it's pretty much the base for I don't think
Very
so.
sweet.
Yeah, it's the base for
Pretty much
everything's
everything?
pretty much made off of it.
Okay.
This one is vanilla.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah, wait,
This is why I don't work in this part.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh, so good.
What, sweet cream, vanilla?
Sweet cream.
Okay.
Sweet cream is my favorite.
This is the roasted banana.
Roasted banana. Okay, I'm gonna say something bold. I love Bluebell. Sweet cream is light years better than Bluebell. Sweet cream is so good. That's my favorite spot.
I got sweet potato.
Sweet potato, oh.
Oh, it's sweet potato praline. I don't think I got you pecans, but it does have pecans.
All right.
What's your favorite flavor?
One we don't have out right now. There's
Okay.
an espresso almond chocolate chip.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, it is back out.
Thumbs up if you got ready. Give her back. Here's your wallet. I'll buy snack cream for
I
you.
mean, give him this for you give him that salty stuff.
Which one's this?
That's the espresso almond chocolate
Oh.
chip. That's the one I like.
That's your favorite? What's your favorite?
It depends on what I'm eating. I love the espresso almond chocolate chip. This one is interesting. This is guava beach. So there's a fellow that came in that wanted a guava ice cream and he brought guava paste so they would make it. It's salty, so be prepared. It's a buttermilk ice cream with a guava, salty guava swirl.
The espresso one, really good.
It is interesting.
Oh. Sweet cream, espresso, strawberry, peach, dark chocolate.
Man,
Top
those are
five.
5 good ones.
These are really good. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay. All right, we just had some ice cream. Thank you, Megan.
Yes,
It
thank
was
you.
delicious. If people are in Marietta, where can they go for the Creamery? Also, if they want to go tour, what all can they do to follow y'all?
Yep, so they can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We also have a website, southern.craftcreamery.com. You can either call us directly and schedule a tour, or you can email us. We are here at 2884 Jefferson Street in downtown Marietta, Florida.
Sweet. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thanks for coming.
It was a blast. All right, cool. So yeah, that tour was great. Thanks so much for watching. We've got more tours coming up, including hopefully, possibly, maybe, definitely a tour of an oyster farm here in Florida and a bunch of other stuff. So don't forget, subscribe if you're new here. Hit the like button down below. Comment, let me know what you liked of this tour, what you didn't like. What are some things or some tours down the road you would like us to do? So yeah, cool. Thanks for watching. See you later. It's cows. It's cows. All right, we're at Lazy Acres here in Marietta, Florida. Have you ever wondered how a small regenerative farmer raises beef, pork, chicken, and sends it to a farmer's market? We're gonna cover it on today's tour with Ryan. It's gonna be great.
And so if eventually cows came into that mix. And when Hurricane Michael happened, you know, a lot of those things went away just because structurally the farm was so devastated. But backing up a little bit, in 2014, we had enough friends and family and people coming out to the farm. We had cleaned up enough of the pine trees as they were being cut down. We were putting everything into pasture. So we were selling enough, you know, half pig, quarter pig, full pig, chickens, those type things, that all of a sudden people were like, hey, you know, I want 2 of these or 4 of those, and so we began to pencil it all out. We were like, you know, I think we can make a living doing this.
Okay, yeah.
And so I left my full-time job in town in 2014 and came to the farm. And up until very recently, that's all I've done. After Hurricane Michael, I did drive a forklift at the sawmill in Cypress for a year. I tell people I have an interesting skill set. I can work through a very complicated Excel spreadsheet, you know, and I have a forklift driving license.
There you go. Certified forklift operator.
So anyway, but I work at an accounting office now 2 days a week in town, and mostly because the boys are getting older. We have scaled back on chickens. We've scaled back on hogs. We've got more cows than we've ever had, but yeah, we've kind of made some changes that have been beneficial, you know.
Yeah, that's cool that it was not so much as like a business venture, it was like a lifestyle change, and then it became a business venture.
Right.
That's neat. Okay.
Yeah, I just told her.
Thank you for the reminder.
They learn pretty quick to do that, because that's where the lush stuff is. I mean, they'll eat that right there, but it's bitter.
Oh, really?
And so they don't really like that, but they will eat it when it's young like that. Now, like these dandelions like this, you know, that's like prime grazing right there. I mean, it's tender, it's good, they like it. And so they know, don't come out here and lollygag and start looking for the perimeter and all that. They know, hey, when we go through this gate, we're eating.
This is the salad bar. We got the good stuff.
Right.
Yeah, we got the little guys coming up. Oh, look at the little one.
Oh, they're tiny.
Yeah, there should be 8 of those.
Okay.
They're not all going to come. I'm going to leave this gate open.
Yeah.
I'll leave a water trough on in there. And this evening I'll come back out and make double sure.
I got you.
All right, so that one right there is crazy.
Really?
That heifer right there is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this brown one, Allie, can you get the yellow thing in his nose? You're trying to get him to stop nursing, right?
We want him to wean.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't prevent him from grazing. It doesn't, or her in this case, from grazing. But in that one's case, the mama is pregnant.
Oh, okay.
And so that calf weighs 300 to 350 pounds, give or take. And that's a lot on her, especially in this heat. And so the wean rings, and I've got some up there, I can show them to you up close.
Okay.
But the wean rings, they slide in the nose. They have a little wing nut that tightens it down. It moves freely. It doesn't hurt them. It's smooth plastic, but it has some little points on it. And there again, they're soft plastic, but you know, it's so when they try to nurse, it bumps into the mama's udders, and she's like, you know, that's enough of that, you know. Happens, you know, we try to let them stay in there 4 weeks, and you know, give or take. So quick little story about this big cow that just lifted up and is coming our way. That's Penny.
Okay.
Penny is a great mama, okay, and super gentle. We could walk over there and pet Penny.
Oh.
But Penny, if Penny had a cell phone or car keys or anything like that, she would lose them. Okay, and so for the first week or so after having a calf, she loses them.
Oh no.
Just loses
How do you
them.
lose them?
And so when she was a
Wandered
heifer,
off.
she did that. I mean, like, just couldn't find it, walked around out here moping around,
Oh.
you know, and just it's like, all right, well, where's this calf? Well, we ended up finding the calf,
Yeah.
you know, and it was still small enough. We, you know, picked it up and we carried it to her, you know, and we thought, wow, she's a first calf heifer. She'll grow out of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the second calf comes along, same deal. She'd go bed it down somewhere and she'd just go eat, you know, and
Forget about
30 minutes later, an hour later, 6 hours later, she's over here mooing, just miserable because
Where's my kid?
her udders are full, and she's like, I just don't know where he's at. You know?
I didn't think about that. I mean, the stress of losing the calf, but also it's like, I gotta milk.
Yeah. And so, you know, second one comes along, third one comes along, fourth one comes along, fifth one. This is her fifth or sixth one. This is her fifth one.
Okay.
And so she had the calf. She had the calf actually in that pasture up there where that big tank is.
Okay.
And we got ready to move, and I moved everybody down into this pasture. Well, here she comes, and I looked at her, and I'm like, "You've had a calf. You're not pregnant anymore, you know." And so, where's your calf? Where's your calf? And she just walks right on by. She's end of the day. I came out here, you know, and I'm just standing up there in the shade listening, and every now and then I hear this, man, Mom, and it's like, all right, Penny. So I went and got my flag, and I went and got her, and I'm like, okay, let's go. You know, and I walk her back up there.
Yeah.
Through the gate, she walks in, and I know because I can hear the calf's over here. I know that's where it's at. I don't know exactly where it's at, but I can hear it. And so she starts walking, gets up to the top of the hill, and heads over this way. And I'm like, where are you going?
Your kid's this way.
So-
Come on, Penny.
So I finally got her back to the calf. The next day, or 2 days, whatever it was, we moved from that pasture to this pasture. And again, she comes right through the gate,
Yeah.
you know, happy-go-lucky. And I'm like, where's your calf? Where's your calf? Well, at the end of the day, she's standing down here at the gate.
Oh, God.
I know I've got something to do, but I can't remember what it is.
I think I left something in here.
And so
Don't quite remember what.
I videoed all that. And of course, that was prior to my Starlink coming in. So I'm hoping to be able to start uploading some of that content.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
This is the first calf heifer right here. We changed her tag out to a yellow tag just because we had her in the corral.
Oh, really? Okay.
She's got a birthmark on her nose though, right there,
Oh.
and just a white hair ring around her nose there.
Oh, okay. I see it. Yeah.
So we thought that was pretty.
I didn't know cows can get birthmarks.
So this little bull right here was not meant to be a little bull.
Really?
So you talked about Sindel Farms. Meg Austin from Sindel is our vet.
Oh, no way.
And so that is Penny. Hey, babe.
Hey, Penny.
You gonna walk away from me?
Oh, she's like, nope.
Yeah, Penny was in the corral. We had a deal at the farm to table dinner. We had her in the corral. It was here at that time.
Okay.
She was the show cow, and
She's a pretty cow.
Dylan didn't let her out. So I said, I'll go do it. About 10:30 at night. And I spooked her when I went in there. And she bucked and then rolled up against me and pinned me against the corral panel.
Oof.
And ended up breaking 2 ribs on this side. Weeks.
Oh, you got a turkey too.
Yeah. She had a mate mate got caught by something.
Oh no.
So they'll stay here for a few days, and I'll take the tractor and I'll mow around out there so we can put the fence down.
Okay.
And then we just move them. You know, we've tried so many different ways to keep them behind the cows, which is what the Salatin style would be, to migrate the chickens behind the cows. And we're just not there yet. I mean, our structure is not there, our infrastructure is not there. I've tried 3 different electric fence chargers that are solar.
Okay.
And they're all just garbage.
Not ideal.
They work, 3 months and then they quit. And so anyway, it's just always a handle. But
so do y'all sell the eggs in the farm store?
yeah,
Or at the farmers
I don't
markets?
have any. At the farmers market we do, and we do have a few egg customers here.
Nice. Okay.
And so that's been a good thing.
That's cool. Yeah, we were talking earlier. That is like just like the Joel Salatin chicken house.
And so we modified it a little bit.
Okay.
We use a tarp on top of it instead of a metal roof.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we noticed in our heat is different than their heat. I know they get hot, but it's just different. And so when we used metal roofs on those, it just stayed so punishingly hot in there.
Yeah.
So we actually get a tarp. Harbor Freight used to have the best tarps ever. I mean, they were like $4, and they lasted. But something's changed since the pandemic, and they're not good anymore. But we would put the tarp on there, and we've got bungee cords on the side that we bungee it onto, and the wind would pick it up, and it would create almost like a bellow, like a what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a tent?
Yeah, like a tent, but it pumps. I mean, it moves air.
Yeah.
And
the air wouldn't stagnate
right.
under there.
And so
That's nice.
So once we did that, we lost almost none of them.
Nice.
to
Okay.
heat during the summertime, or early summer. Now this time of the year, the Cornish crosses, you would lose some as hot as it is. The egg box is open right now. Somebody, I guess Kelly, when she got eggs, she must have left it open. But yeah, it's just simple. I mean, there's nothing fancy about it. It's completely nasty inside. Chickens are the nastiest animals. I see all these Pinterest, chicken coops and everything, and I just think to myself, you realize about 4 minutes after that chicken is in there, there's gonna be crap everywhere inside that thing.
Please send us a before and after.
Yes.
Before chickens were in it and after chickens were in it.
These reading areas where the kids have a little reading bench and chicken coop, and I'm like, oh, you just don't know.
It looks good on paper, but in practice.
Yeah. It's fun until they poop everywhere.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's cool though.
Now this pasture, we ran 600 meat birds on this.
Okay.
We started down there, we came across here, over, back across. And so they almost made the lap over twice.
Oh, nice.
And so we ended up butchering them when they were, well, you see where they ended. They stopped right there. That far one is in the high weeds, and then this one right here. So that's where they stopped.
Okay.
But
that's a lot of chickens. 600.
It's a lot, and it's a lot of poop on the ground. I mean, when you look at these pastures, I mean, this is ready to be grazed. It should have been grazed by now, but I've just, I got more grass than cows, which is a wonderful problem to have.
Oh yeah. I'm sure grazing cows are a lot easier than chickens.
Yeah. I'm
gonna have to move all this stuff.
Yeah, we've gotten it down to a science. I mean,
Really?
We've gotten it down. We each have a job, and if Nathan is here and Kelly and I are here, we can move them completely in about 45 minutes.
Okay.
So it's not an all-day deal.
That's doable. That's nice.
And that's something with the farm that we had to get in our head. If the chores are taking 3 and 4 hours every day, they're not chores.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a drudgery, you know. And so raising boys on the farm, we had to figure out a way to make things concise. And raising boys on the farm, we had to figure out a way to help the boys make decisions. I'm a decision maker, and I realized when the boys were 12 or 13 years old that I was making too many decisions because they were great worker bees. I mean, the boys would work themselves, you know, they just knew how to do it. But if you had to come out here and, oh, how do we, you know, what's our plan for this? Well, if Dad tells us what the plan is, we'll kill it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I realized that at some point, and then I started backing off and being like, all right, tell me how you're going to do this. What's your plan? And so one of the things we instituted, and we did it for two reasons. One, for them to make decisions, and two, we wanted them to start putting tools back in the toolbox and in the barn. But if you can do it in 2 minutes or less, do it now. If it takes longer than 2 minutes, plan it, work the plan. And so one of the reasons we did that was so they would look at, can I do this in 2 minutes? Is if I can't, then how do I approach this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's real simple, it's real quaint, nice and cool.
Oh, it's very nice and cool. Nice. Got a bunch of spices, all right.
Yeah, Green Gate, Olive Grove. Let's see. I don't know if those things work or not, but we've got one. Supposed to make pests go away, I don't know.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if it actually work, but.
So I assume you've got the pork, chicken, or pork, chicken, beef in the freezers?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And so right now I don't have a lot of pork at all. That's something we didn't even look at. We didn't look at says we're in Lulu.
Oh yeah.
Up on the hill. We can go back up there if you'd like later.
Sure.
But right now primarily chickens and beef.
Okay.
And so like this is chickens.
Chickens.
And so these are the 3-ish to 4-ish pounders.
Okay.
And we've got 4s and 5s in there, and I've got a handful of 6s and lots of beef in here. And
do you butcher these yourself, or you send them somewhere?
we do.
You do? Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're in the process. We built an area that's open air in the back and have the 3-base sink, have a hand wash sink. We've got a stainless steel table. Complied with all the stuff, but they changed that. I think it was last year, where open air is no longer
really
accepted in Florida.
Okay.
And so, you know, so I've got a trailer back there, enclosed trailer that I'm gonna actually close in. I'm gonna put a mini split in it. And you know, we got thinking about it. The older that we get, and the boys moving on, you know, it might actually be a really good side business.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's raising chickens.
Some mobile butchering? That's a great idea.
You know, but nobody necessarily has a plucker or a scalder or the kill cones or. I mean, that's a lot of infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you buy a plucker, you're $800-900, $1,000 into it. Well, at some point, if you're just butchering chickens, does that make a lot of sense? You know, and then
true,
who wants to hand pluck a chicken? We did. I mean, and I can tell you, when we got done with that first batch, Kelly was like, well, I'll have a plucker or we won't do this again.
Yeah. You start to immediately regret having chickens.
Yeah.
There's so much work.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, we, the metal on the walls and the ceiling came from Mr. Horton's barn, Kelly's dad.
Okay.
Hurricane Michael blew the roof off of his barn, and we trudged out into the woods and salvaged what we could.
There you go, yeah.
And so it ended up being utilized for this.
Hi. Had to do a first in-person interview. I'm a little nervous. Can you tell? Ryan, thanks for having us, man.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Yeah, so again, we were just talking, I've done over 200 episodes of the first in-person one, so it's kind of nice not to have to rely on the internet.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in the farm store at Lazy Acres. How long have y'all had this farm store right here?
So we started building the farm store in 2018.
Okay.
And we had the majority of it done, and Hurricane Michael happened. And so we actually finished in and opened officially June the 1st, 2019.
Nice. Okay.
So a little while.
A little while. And you've got chicken, beef, pork, which we saw a little bit earlier. You said you cut back on the pork, right? Because you've got your kids are going off to college.
Yeah, we're sort of in a transition point. You know, our boys, they're 18, 19, and 22.
Yeah.
And our 22-year-old is married. Our 19-year-old has finished trade school, has joined the Navy, and or is in the process of finishing trade school. He'll be finished soon, and then leaving for the Navy. Our 18-year-old is working full-time at the peanut mill in Bascom, and in January he leaves to go to North Georgia to college. So my wife and I aren't getting any younger. Pastured pigs is a little bit of a labor-intensive endeavor, and so we knew that with the boys moving on, that was going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened during COVID with supply chain issues and, you know, just the difficulty of getting things, inflation, at one point pig feed was costing about 3 times what it had previously cost.
Ooh.
And so it became pretty cost prohibitive to raise pigs. And so we still have Sizzler, our boar, and we have a sow they're together right now, as a matter of fact. So we haven't completely shut down on pigs, but we've just significantly reduced, you know, what we have. Our consistency with pork will be a little bit inconsistent, if you will, simply because we just don't have the number of animals that we used to have.
So speaking of COVID, I love chatting with people about this, not in COVID in particular, but were y'all doing farmers markets before or after COVID?
We were. And, you know, I want to be careful what I say. I don't want to get your podcast blacklisted or dinged or anything, but I knew there was something up, all right? When we got the notification that the farmers markets were shutting down, the roadside stands had to shut down. If you have a farm store on your farm, you have to shut down. But the large grocery stores are wide open. And for me, it just didn't connect. It was just this doesn't make sense. Why would it be that way? And the problem was, the frustrating thing for me is I'm analytical and I like to ask questions and I like to learn, but you couldn't ask questions. If you did, you were told, hey, that's not what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so that for me was very, very frustrating. But we were shut down, I guess mid-March is when it began to happen. Of 2020, so we were shut down the whole end of March, April, May. I don't know exactly when we started back. Sometime in June or July, I would guess. I'd have to look back to tell you exact start date, but it was really frustrating. Yeah.
So how did y'all manage? Because it's not like you can just tell the cows to stop growing, the chickens to stop growing. So how did you manage all that during COVID?
So we were in the process of, we had a website and we had an online store.
Okay.
And it was a little bit clunky, okay? We were in the process of transitioning to a different online store that was a much more streamlined. It's what we're using today. And so we had an August, I believe it was August 15th was the date that we were shooting to launch. And that was prior to COVID even being a thing, okay?
Yeah.
Nobody knew COVID was a thing. And so we were in the transition point of migrating from our old website to our new website. We were still writing the content. What's it going to say? What's it going to look like? What are the colors going to be? You know, that form and function of it. And then COVID happened. And so the web company that we were working with, the online company, you know, we called them up and we said, hey, whatever we got to do, it may not have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
We just need a bell and a
Please
whistle.
push it out right now. Yeah.
And so the website initially went out to be able to sell sometime in July, I believe. So we were a full month and a half earlier than we intended to be. And we, you know, like everything, we had some bumps in the road. We had some, you know, curves that we had to figure out
Yeah.
But so that was a saving grace, because a lot of the small farms like ours, you don't qualify for an SBA loan because you're a farm. Well, because of the size and the scale and what we do, and when you've got multiple animals, and when you go over to the FSA, the Farm Service Agency, they were like, well, you need to go to the SBA. You're not really what we're set up to deal with. And so we kind of were in that unique position where what do we do? And so basically we just sort of squared our shoulders back and said, you know what? We're here and it's us and we're going to do this, and so what has not been an easy thing. It's been a challenge.
Well, I mean, it seems like you guys have been, since then kind of thriving, because y'all are super popular at farmers markets, like the farm store online and everything. I'm sure that was eased all the apprehension and worry you had during the pandemic.
Sure. And the, everything is a matter of degree, I guess. But when you go from being very comfortable with your inventory and being very comfortable with the pace that your inventory leaves, and the pace that you restock your inventory, okay? When all of a sudden people are lined up out there and they're buying you out. We literally went from our average sale prior to COVID, I believe I could go back and tell you exactly, but it was like $27 a customer.
Nice. Okay.
So our average sale was like $27. Well, during the COVID hysteria, it was $65. And so because people just knew there's never going to be any more ground beef, there's never going to be another dozen eggs, there's never going to be another whole chicken. And so we're telling them the whole time, do you really need 20 pounds of ground beef? There's two of you, come on.
Yeah.
And so I had a guy call me, and he's like, man, I need 100 pounds of ground beef. Well, at the time, I didn't have 100 pounds of ground beef. I literally did not have 100 pounds of ground beef on the farm, and I was like, I don't have it. He got aggravated with me, and I was like, why do you need 100 pounds of ground beef? Let's think this through for a minute. So I talked him off the ledge. He came and got like 10 pounds of ground beef, and he became a regular customer.
Nice. Okay.
Over time.
Yeah.
But, I tried to explain to him, man, we're just not set up for that. The vast majority of small farms that you're going to shop with are not set up for that.
Yeah.
And so take a deep breath. The world's not coming to an end. As long as the sun shines and rains falls, we're going to grow food, okay?
Yeah.
So step back away from the ledge, and you can get by with 5 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever.
You don't need 100 pounds.
You don't need
every
100
time.
pounds of ground beef. That's not what you need to do. But people went into that mode, that frenzy mode. And so what it created for us was a frenzy of, how do we do this? You couldn't get into the butcher. Of course, we have butcher dates, but even with those, the inspectors were working half schedules. And so you couldn't, it wasn't that, even if you had a butcher date, it didn't matter. You might not be able to get in there. And so that made it a challenge for sure. And when you work really, really, really hard and you restock all the freezers, and 48 hours after that, they're all empty again. It's like,
it's a good thing, but a bad thing also.
It's a good thing, but it's a scary thing, because now you're like, well, now I'm spending all day long telling people I don't have.
Yeah.
And in business, you don't want to do that.
Nope.
You never, ever want to tell people.
Because then they go somewhere else, right? Yeah.
And they go somewhere else forever, And so, or at least that's the devil on your shoulder.
Yeah. They're never going to come back.
Never going to come back to you. You're done, And so it was a really challenging time, and it still is. We still deal with inventory.
I bet, yeah.
If the entire cow could be ribeye steaks, if the entire pig could be bacon, it'd be a perfect world. But the reality is, when we carry a cow to the butcher, they weigh live weight about 1,100 pounds. We end up with 24-ish ribeye steaks out of that. A 260-pound hog live weight is going to give us about 18 pounds of bacon.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not this. We don't get 500 pounds of bacon out of a 600-pound hog. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so, boy, I wish it did. But
that's true. And I heard a lot of people during COVID. A lot of people send me articles, and they're like, "Well, can't you see? Like, we have a beef shortage." But we didn't have a beef shortage. It was a bottleneck on the supply chain because there's so much like that we can process at a time, and people are panic buying. So they're, oh, we don't have enough beef. We need to buy all the beef. We don't have any beef, but we do. It was the bottleneck that we were facing.
Yeah, the processing bottleneck was the real issue, and people began to realize that our food system was fragile for the first time in a long time. Yeah, you know, people like my family that decided many years ago we're going to grow our own food because it's fragile. The system, well, wholesale, broad spectrum, people began to realize that it might not be as secure as we once thought it was. Yeah, and part of that is, you know, you've got, say, 10 or 11 facilities, 12 facilities across the entire country that employ thousands and thousands and thousands of people, you know, and they process 85% of the beef or the pork or whatever, you know. And so if you had 1,000 workers, well, if you've got all 1,000 of those at one place, if something happens at that one place, well, that's a bottleneck. Yeah. You know, if you've got 50 of those at 20 places, well, if 2 of them go offline, who cares? You know, we've got 18 of them running full blast. You know, we work an extra shift at the 18th one, you know, and we catch up, you know. Yeah. But that's not the way our food system is built right now. And it does add a lot of uncertainty when we have an issue, you know. Commercial agriculture, industrial agriculture, if you will, it works great as long as fertilizer's cheap. It works great as long as fuel is cheap. It works great as long as there's not a hiccup in the system. But the moment that you can't get fertilizer, or you can't get seed, or you can't, you know, whatever, you know, we've dealt with in the last 3 years. Yeah. Well, now all of a sudden it creates some problems. And I think people for the first time in a long time are beginning to see that oh, this is fragile.
Oh yeah, even with like the war in Ukraine, I mean, fertilizer costs skyrocketed, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
So what do you think? Would you consider yourself a regenerative farmer?
We are a regenerative farmer. We do consider ourselves that. And when we say that, we try to mimic nature. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a no-till grain drill that we invested a lot of money in. Okay. And so we no-till plant over our summer pastures, and we grow winter grazing in the fall and winter. We once we get things planted, we try not to till the soil up again. Okay. Yeah. And I say it that way. I know that there's a school of thought out there that, oh, you shouldn't be tilling up anything. Well, in a perfect world, yes. Yeah. We dealt with Hurricane Michael, and you know, it destroyed all of the timber and all of the forest on the farm virtually. And so we had to clean all that up. And so when you clean that up, it's rough. And so we had to go in there and disc all that, level it. Then we planted grass. You know, this pasture that we looked at with the chickens, the one we looked at with the cows, we won't till that up again. I mean, it's going to be that way, you know, till the end of time. You know, I mean, if I'm gone and somebody decides to till it up, I guess so. Yeah, there you go. But no, so we're a regenerative farm in that regard. We try to mimic nature. Nature doesn't leave things uncovered. You know, you go in your yard and you take a shovel and you dig out a spot. In 6 weeks, there'll be something in that spot. I mean, it just happens that way. We move the cows every day. You know, you guys got to witness part of that. That was cool. We waited a little long in the day to do it, and so they were like, it's a little warm.
It was hot. They wanted to stay in the shade.
And so, but normally we move the cows either really early in the morning, you know, between 6 and 7 a.m. or 5 and 6 p.m. So they're not used to that. Was out of character for them. Yeah. Some of them were really good and you know, placated us in that. But anyway, we move the chickens. When we have meat birds, we move them twice a day. And they're in the Salatin style enclosures. You know, they're 12 feet long, so they move 12 feet in the morning and they move 12 feet in the evening. Reduces all the odor, you know, because chickens they're smelly. They're smelly. Yeah. They poop a lot, and so it reduces all of that because you're essentially giving them a brand new bed every day. Yeah. Okay. And when we had pigs, we moved the pigs about every 4 to 6 weeks. At one time we had 150 pigs here, and so
that's a lot of pigs.
Now the benefit like I say, we've cut back on pigs, but the benefit of having 100, 150 pigs on a pasture and then moving them every, say, 6 weeks, those pastures now are lush and fertile. And so we've added cows because we've got more pasture for the cows. We had 6 pig paddocks that were roughly 30 acres total. And so, now we can put those cows in there, and I mean, the fences are already up, everything's there,
Yeah.
And so it's really been a neat way to use that land. If pigs are used properly, they can do a lot of good things.
So every time I talk with a regenerative farmer, I think about the words intentionality. Like the more intentional you are, you can have less inputs because you're paying attention to the grass, to the soil, to the pigs. So do you think, like, I don't know, what would you say to a farmer that maybe not is regenerative, maybe they're on the fence? Like, what would you say to them to make them make that last step to going full regenerative?
Well, everybody's got to do what they know, and the hard part is if you've done it one way for a long, long time, and Dad did it that way, and Granddad did it that way, and so on, it becomes. I mean, somebody's got to break that trend. All right. And so we tell everybody, I mean, we're a 7th generation farm, but we're 1st generation farmers. Because, Mr. Neal, Kelly's granddad, he passed away in 1987. And so the succession plan at that point just sort of stopped. The cows went away, the row crop went away, pine trees were planted in most of the fields. And so we had the benefit of having farmland, but nobody really saying, this is the way you got to do this.
Right, yeah.
And so we looked at it from a couple of perspectives. One, we wanted to enhance the soil. The soil is the most important thing we've got. And so we wanted to improve the soil and enhance it. But at the same time, we didn't have a barrel of money. We didn't have this trust fund somewhere. So we had to do things that we could afford. And so the idea of tilling up an area, planting grass, and then putting $10,000 worth of fertilizer on top of it was laughable for us.
Yeah.
We looked at that and like, nope, that's not happening. But, I can buy $300 worth of chickens. I can buy $600 worth of chickens, build a chicken enclosure, and drag those chickens up and down the pasture, and by the time they get to the end of it, I've put $15,000 worth of fertilizer on that pasture. Now, I didn't do it in one day, and I didn't do it, at one shot, but, I did compound those enterprises and stack them on that acre. The advantage to doing it that way is that I've got a freezer full of chickens that I can sell, and so I've got, significant inventory that'll help me pay the phone bill and the power bill, et cetera, in the future. And I'm improving my soil. And so I think it's certainly a different way to look at agriculture, and I think a lot of farms that would be resistant to regenerative farming, I don't know this is completely anecdotal, but I have a feeling that at some point in a conversation with them, they would tell you they have to feed the world. Because a lot of farms tell you that. We don't believe that. That is not in my belief system at all. It's not my responsibility. It's not the role of my farm. And I know that's, people would look at, oh, well, that's a pretty hard line to take. But first and foremost, I mean, I'm responsible for my family, feeding them really high quality, good food, then my community, and any given Saturday at the farmer's market, we have between 40 and 60 customers, pretty regularly at the farmer's market. And so those folks are who I'm responsible for, and the more small farms like Lazy Acres, and you could start naming them, Sindel Farms you guys have been to, there's many, many small farms out there. The more small farms we get doing this regenerative ag approach, I think the better off we are, and the food is better. The quality of the food is better. I had a guy come yesterday, drove all the way up from Panama City, and hey man, do y'all have any ground beef? And I said, yeah, we've got ground beef. He was like, good. I'll be there in 20 minutes or whatever.
Nice, yeah.
He was coming up 2:31, and anyway, he had tried our ground beef. and he liked it. He was up in this area anyway, and he was like, you know, I bought beef from a grocery store, and I don't know what's different, but yours is different. You know, I'm like, well, here's some things that are different. And we talked about, you know, it dry aging for 2 weeks before it's processed into ground beef. We talked about it being on pasture. Cows are moving around, doing what cows do. They're grazing grass. We're not feeding grain.
Yeah.
And again, we didn't sit up on some high lofty point when we decided we weren't doing grain. It was financial. You know, everybody around here's doing grain, and when I started looking at the cost of a ton of, you know, good quality cow feed, I was like, I can't pencil that out and make it make sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I'm gonna grow the best grass I can, and the cows will do the rest. And so we were very fortunate. We bought a fair number of cows. We had a bunch of cows. When I say a bunch, we had about 25. And so we ended up buying 25 cows. We doubled the size of our herd because there was a farm going. The gentleman was retiring. He was 92 years old. And
Time to retire.
He was selling off some cattle, and his adult children, his daughters, they were like 66 and 69 years old. Okay. And so they were to a point where they were like, Dad, it's time. And so we ended up buying like 25 of their cows. Well, they were grass cows. He did not believe in feeding them. The mama cow can feed the calves better than I can, I heard him say that. And then the mama cows, well, if they're any kind of mama, they'll go out there and graze. And I mean, that was his attitude, you know, and I thought, you know, that's a pretty good attitude.
Yeah.
He had electric fences. We had electric fences. You know, hardy, durable cows. We bought 25 of them, and day one, they walked in here and they started grazing. I mean, they never went back to the barn going, hey, is that where the feed is?
Yeah.
They didn't know. They had no idea. And so part of that is breeding a group of cows that can do it. I mean, that are hardy on grass, you know. And ours are that.
So before you process them, are they still on grass, or do you do a grain finish? Or
We don't do any grain.
Just
finish.
all grass. Okay.
Now we do occasionally, if it's really dry, or if we're in between that, you know, summer to winter time where we don't have a lot of grass, we will give them perennial peanut hay.
Gotcha. Okay.
And which is a kind of like southern alfalfa, and it's very nutritious. It digests well. You know, a lot of protein, a lot of calories. I mean, it's really good. The cows love it. I mean, they'll knock you down to get to it.
Yeah.
But that's typically what we feed. We just, you know, we did have a time. It's been a while back. We've had fairly good rain. We did have a time where we got super dry. I mean, we had a drought, and we did have to feed because, I mean, you know, we just had to. We had to buy hay in the summertime, and we had to supplement with feed because the hay didn't have enough protein in it. And again, we made that decision based on the body conditioning of our cows, based on, you know, what they looked like and how they were able to nurse and how their calves looked and that kind of thing. So we knew, but that's really not that was more of a management survival decision.
Yeah, then in terms of just the diet.
That wasn't a day-to-day operational thing, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like your point earlier about kind of like the farmers that want to feed the world. I feel like a lot of the opponents to regenerative farming that are farmers are usually like the big 1,000-acre like monocrops where they're, you know, like massive amounts of corn and soybeans and stuff. But like the same farmers are like, we need to decentralize food, so we don't really need to feed the world. And I like that point. Like, you as a farmer, you don't need to feed the world. You need to feed your family and the community. Like, that's awesome. And I think I always tell people, like, the shorter the food supply chain is, the better it's going to be for the consumer and the farmer. Because the farmer, you know your consumer, you're going to get a little bit more money. And the consumer, you're going to get a better product and support a local business.
Yeah, and local is always better.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you start looking at local, it's better on the cows. In our case, as a local farm, it's better on the cows, it's better on the environment, it's better on me as the farmer, it's better on the customer.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a USDA statistic the other day. I was on a web forum actually doing some research, and the average morsel of food travels about 1,700 miles now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't traveled 1,700 miles. I mean, you know, as the farmer doesn't get to see that part of the country that their food is going to. You know? But 1,700 miles, that's a ton of diesel fuel. You know, that's a ton of resources You know, everybody talks about this, the global warming and the climate change, and they're all up in arms about cow farts and things like that. And it's just, for a small farm like me, I'm just perplexed by it. I look at it and I go, what in the world are y'all talking about? I got grass deep enough that you can't see over.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What are y'all talking about, you know? And so I think about a small farm. Well, I don't emit any CO2. I mean, I got one tractor and one truck. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm emitting some CO2, but I've got all of the sequestration back into the soil through photosynthesis, through managed grazing, through all of those things. And my supply chain is little. I mean, I'm going to Panama City and back here, and I'm here, you know. So I'm not traveling off to Texas or Wyoming or Washington to sell my product.
Yeah.
It's being sold right here. And so I think if we looked at it from that point of view, a lot of those arguments, especially the anti-animal arguments, a lot of those begin to lose, you know, steam pretty quick.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's in the Netherlands or in Ireland, but to combat climate change, they were going to cull, I think, 200,000 cattle, but they're removing a natural process. Like your cows eating grass is a natural process.
Right.
So essentially they're like, this natural process isn't good enough, let's just remove it.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and that it's in the Netherlands where that's happening. It's heartbreaking, you know. I mean, there again, we would be one of those farms if that was happening here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's absolutely heartbreaking that that's happening to those farms. But at the same time, they've allowed that nonsensical. There again, I don't want to get your podcast.
No, you're good.
But this green idea, it's just pointed in the wrong direction. You know, we're renewable, sustainable energy. We didn't talk about this earlier, but my bachelor's degree is in electronic engineering.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so back in the mid-90s, when I went to college and learned all about electricity and what it does and can't do and those things, you know, we really didn't call it solar back then. We called it, you know, the photovoltaic array. You know, PVA was what it was called back then. But solar, you know, everybody looked at solar and just thought, nah, that's never going to be. You know, people that have a solar well like I do, people that have solar panels on their house, they want to run a water heater.
Yeah.
You know, okay, but it's never going to be, you know, a real replacement for the grid.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, there's 1,000 acres of solar fields, you know, 2 miles from this farm that they took farmland and made into solar, you know, and it's heartbreaking to see that happen because the amount of CO2 that they're expelling to create that, to fix the CO2 is staggering. My farm would never, ever, ever emit that much CO2. In 2 lifetimes, you couldn't emit what they've emitted over there, cleaning that up, manufacturing, mining the materials for the solar. And it's just not a fantastic energy source. You know, 50% of the time it doesn't work because it's dark.
Especially here in Florida when it rains half the time.
Every afternoon, we're the afternoon thunderstorm state. We're not the sunshine state. And so anyway, that's a tangent I got off on. I'm sorry, but
no, that's perfect.
It does make me wonder. Sometimes our messaging, I think we get so caught up in protecting our territory in agriculture that we forget we need to message differently. We need to talk to people about the benefits of this, not protect. I'm going to feed the world. No. Let's don't go from that point of view. Let's look at it from how can we improve the overall environment. And so anyway.
Yeah, no, it seems like you and even people like Joel Salatin, they're like animal agriculture and agriculture in general is part of the solution. Like, don't completely remove it. Here's, if you are intentional about it with grazing, crop rotation, it can sequester so much more carbon than if you just removed it and then what it's giving off. So yeah, those are all really good points.
Oh yeah.
I like it. So you guys are super active, obviously here at the farm store. You go to the Panama City Farmers Market. You go to any other farmer markets around here?
Not right now, and we have dabbled in different ones. We've done some pop-up markets. We've done other farmers markets. it's a real challenge at our scale to do more than one, just simply because we run out of inventory. You know, we were doing 2 markets a week for a while, and we just couldn't keep up. It was just we were on a treadmill, and that thing was getting faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
So we had to decide, okay, where are we going to put our energy? Where are we going to focus? And so we go to the Panama City Farmers Market, the downtown market, and we have the farm store here. We have an online store, and we deliver to Panama City Farmers Market just about every Saturday.
Nice. Now, do you feel like you found your customer base? Because I've heard horror stories from people that either have a farm store, or they do farmers markets, or they deliver. So do you feel like doing all those 3 at your scale is pretty good for y'all?
I think so. Yesterday I had a guy come in, and I mean, he walked through the door, you know, I need 4 pounds of ground beef and a 6-pound chicken. I mean, that's specific. He was a return customer, and I love those people because I don't have to sell them anything. This is what I need. Yeah. And we have a lot of customers at the Panama City Market that are like that. You know, they come up, hey, I need 2 chickens, 1 of these, 2 of those. You know, it's easy to pull all that out of the freezer, ring it up, shake their hand, talk about their kids for a second or two, you know, camaraderie with them, you know, and then they move on, the next customer's there. The customer that's difficult is the one that wants, you know, they've never eaten from a local farm. They've never eaten grass-finished beef. You know, they want to ask you a million questions about what you do. Well, why is yours more expensive than it is at the grocery store? I don't understand that. And so they're not really a customer. And so those are challenging, you know, and they exist everywhere. And sometimes we win those folks over. Sometimes we don't. But I know that having the farm store has helped us over the years. Now, if you look at the sales at the farm store versus the farmer's market or the online sales, the farm store doesn't hold a candle to those. We're off the beaten path. I mean, you drove out here. You got to be intentional to get to. Nothing is out here. It's us. And so you got to be coming here to get here. There's no other reason to be here. So, but if we get people here and we can walk around a little bit and we can look at cows and we can look at pigs and look at chickens and we can tell them our story, you know, they end up becoming a customer more often than not.
That's awesome.
You know, and they may become an online customer, but this helped them understand what we're doing and why we're doing it.
And speaking of like sharing your story, y'all just got Starlink. So are you going to be a little bit more active on the internet now?
That is our plan.
There you go.
We're about a week, no, not quite a week into Starlink. And so we're excited about that. You know, we've been binge watched a series on Amazon. It's one of the first times we've actually done that, you know, and I was like, I don't know, I got to be careful with this.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
you can binge stuff for days.
I'll sit here and become a couch potato, and I got chores to do, you know. But I guess we just, when you don't have internet, you don't have a consistent, and we're rural, so, you know, it's always been inconsistent, to all of a sudden have something that just works.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit like, oh my, you know, that's
game changing.
Very interesting.
I mean, has Starlink been good for y'all so far? Like, what's your experience been like with it?
So far, and there again, we were used to a little hotspot.
Oh yeah.
From a wireless carrier, and we would get 4 or 5 megabits download speed, and it was about 50% of the time. I mean, it was just not consistent. The first day we had Starlink, you know, we were at 180 megabits. Yeah. So it's just mind-numbing that this is what, you know, I mean, we updated all our phones, you know, and the iPad looked completely different the next day, you know, and it's like, I don't even know what to do. You know? So yeah, it's been pretty cool. Yeah.
I bet it's so funny because I hear that pain point from every other farmer I talk to. They're like, we have no internet. I have to go in town to do it, or I have to get in the car. Did y'all have any sort of assistance when you tried to get Starlink from like the Florida Department of Agriculture or anything like that?
No, we were on the waiting list a little over 2 years.
Really? Okay.
And it was funny. The FedEx guy pulls up in the driveway, and he's got my Starlink box. And I know I was probably like, hey, you know. And so
you go out there skipping, you're like, internet,
I'm sure that I was like, all right. And he said, yeah, you've been looking forward to this. And I was like, yes, sir, I have. I've been on the waiting list a little over 2 years. We chit-chatted about it.
Yeah.
He said, well, he said, I knew something had changed. He said, because this is probably the 12th one of these that I've delivered over the last 2 weeks.
No way.
And he said, so everybody in this little community is on Starlink.
Cool.
And I was like, well, that's neat, you know. And so, yeah, everybody was in that same boat. They were willing to make the investment. They were willing to pay the monthly fee just to see.
Oh, yeah.
And like I say, so far, it's been great. It was super easy to install. And I'm relatively handy because you know, on the farm you do things.
And electrical engineering, yeah.
And so installing it was, I mean, they thought of everything. I mean, they literally thought of everything.
Nice.
So it's well done. The app is well done. You know, sometimes you get things and you look at the app and you're like, what is this? You know, but it works really well.
Have you seen the satellites go by at night?
I've not seen them. My neighbor did.
Really? Okay.
I have not. I guess we get up really early in the morning, and I'm usually in bed by 9:30.
Yeah,
so I guess I'm just not out there when they're out there. But I've seen pictures of them. I think it's cool.
They're trippy. I think I've seen them once, but then you can get online and go to a website that shows you all the different satellites, and you can see them, and they're just like daisy chaining around the world. It's wild.
Right. It's pretty neat.
But that's awesome. So if people want to follow you, what's the website? What days do you go to the Panama City Farmers Market?
The website is thelazyacres.com, and on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, it's The Lazy Acres. And so we go to the farmers market just about every Saturday.
Okay.
Now, with that said, you know, we've had some inconsistency there. We've had graduations and we've had weddings and we've had a lot of stuff going on.
And anniversaries,
and anniversaries, and just a lot of stuff going on, life going on. And so, but typically we're at the farmers market every Saturday. We're closed here at the farm store, you know, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and there again, most days we're open. I always encourage people, especially if you're driving up from Panama City or Tallahassee or somewhere that's a little bit of a drive, you know, call ahead of time before you come out here.
Right. Yeah.
Normally I'm here, but like yesterday I had to run into town and had a guy call and he was like, "Hey, I'm 10 minutes from the farm store," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm not."
Yeah.
And so anyway, but he was cool. I mean, he sat on the front porch out there until I got here.
Yeah, enjoyed the rocking chairs out there. That's awesome. Good little view. You get to see the dogs too. Bear and what was the other dog's name?
Bear and Wes.
Bear and Wes.
We have Marley. You didn't meet Marley.
Okay.
Marley was inside. Marley is she's the sweetest dog in the whole world. I mean, literally. And so, but she, as the vet put it the last time she was there, she's very well conditioned. And so the heat is tough on Marley.
Oh,
and so
poor
Marley's
thing. Okay.
inside the house. You know,
there you go.
Marley's the queen. So
are they all pretty friendly whenever all the customers come up?
They are. Now, Wes tries to talk to you, and he has this like grunt and gurgle that he does, and he's done it since the day he was born. We don't know, but some people think he's growling, but he's not. He's the gentlest dog ever, but he does have this like rah 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 rah.
Just trying to say, he's very welcoming.
Yeah, he's just super sweet.
That's awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for having us. It was fun to do an in-person interview actually with Allie behind the camera. So thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Yeah. All right. Sweet.